Collier, as has former Republican Lieutenant Governor Bill Ratliff. 3 recent polls show Patrick with a lead over Collier ranging from 6 to 11 percentage points. Now we turn our attention to the governor's race. A new Quinnipiac University poll released Wednesday continues to show a lead for incumbent Governor Greg Abbott. He has a 7 percentage point lead over Beto O'Rourke, 53 to 46%. This week, O'Rourke began his college tour across the state, which included a stop at UT Arlington. And he is relying on younger voters to turn out. At UT Arlington, Democrat Beto O'Rourke praised students for registering to vote and urged them to make their voices heard at the ballot box, just as he said students across Texas did 4 years ago.
Young voter turnout in that election was up 504% from the previous midterm year because of you and you and you.
O'Rourke will need help from students like these if he wants to change what poll results show. A new Quinnipiac University poll of likely voters places Republican Greg Abbott with a 7 percentage point lead over O'Rourke, 53 to 46%. Analysts say in Texas, the more likely voters are older and more conservative. I asked O'Rourke how important his college tour across Texas and voter turnout operation are to the success of his campaign.
In 2018, I became the first Democrat to win Tarrant County since 1994. And we did it with young people, like those who are here at UT Arlington right now. They were reflected in no one's poll.
O'Rourke's visit to UT Arlington comes 2 days before he tries to knock Governor Abbott off his political game during their one and only debate.
This is probably going to be the only chance for voters in Texas to see a direct contrast between Greg Abbott and his 8 years of failure as our governor.
In response, Governor Abbott's campaign press secretary said, quote, "The contrast in this race couldn't be clearer. More Texans are working today than ever before. Governor Abbott is running for re-election to secure the future of Texas through increased job creation and economic opportunity for all Texans." After Friday's debate, O'Rourke will continue his college tour with stops in Denton and Dallas on Monday. The one and only debate between Governor Abbott and Beto O'Rourke takes place Friday night at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley in Edinburgh. So what does each of them have to do to win? We spoke with TCU speech and debate team coach Amaret Hinderaker.
As we look at debate season and political debates, especially in the particular political climate that we're in now, we've gotten to a place where I hesitate to even call them debates, if I'm honest. And we are seeing both a political moment and a trend in political debates where it's more like dueling persuasion rather than debate. And I'm not sure that's been very helpful to our political choices, as evidenced by the last several years. But I think when we're talking about what do they have to do to win, the truth of the matter is I think that both candidates and politics in general has a tendency of late to tell me not what I'm buying with my vote, but what I'm not. And so honestly, I think what each candidate needs to do to win this thing and to win votes is to tell me what I'm voting for, not who I'm voting against. And so I think that both candidates need to do more to tell me what they're going to do about the problems that Texans face for the job that they're actually trying to get. How do I not just talk about national issues and tell me I'm not the other candidate and I'm not the other party, but rather what are they going to do for Texas issues? What are they going to do about things like our power grid and soaring rents and soaring home costs and property taxes and the things that matter to Texans and what their proposals are? No one's proposing and everyone's telling me what they're not. And I think that's a problem.
And so let me ask you, because I think because there is only one of these debates that there's going to be, certainly O'Rourke needs to go on offense to try to push the governor off of his game. And we know that Governor Abbott is going to go right back at O'Rourke and paint him as someone too dangerous, because that's what we hear in the ads. And I'm sure that's going to be the case. And so it's going to be likely a feisty debate. So how do they get both of those things in, because that they're going to go after each other. So what's the success really for that, you know what I mean? What is going to be good for these guys? Because you have to land a punch, but be able to take a punch, right?
Right, certainly. And I think we've reached a place where both of these candidates are so tied to their party politics that we're going to see that kind of taking a shot at the other party, taking a shot at the politics of the other person and or party, and those kind of personal attacks. And so I certainly think that's going to happen. And frankly, that does rile up the base, and it will get the people who already support to, you know, it's that confirmation bias effect. The people who already support that party will be cheerleading their candidate with those sort of things. But Texas in particular, we're one of those states, for better or for worse, that the national stage watches. People are watching this gubernatorial race, not just in Texas. And part of that is it's always going to be that middle swing voter that needs the appeal, right? And so if we're talking about who are we trying to persuade, those sort of personal attacks and the go after the person, not after the issues, to go after the candidate, not after the policy that we've fallen into, the problematic part of that is it's never going to persuade that middle undecided or the disgruntled, increasingly growing number of disgruntled voters in the middle that are done with both parties and kind of done with the attacks. And so certainly I think that that tactic of watching them work, and of course they're going to go on the offense to try to attack the person, that's going to happen. But I'm not sure that it's particularly productive when it comes to persuading the voters who are, you're never going to you're never going to persuade the voters that are pushed to one side or the other, but that middle or undecided voter, I'm not sure that that's entirely productive. And so, you know, I always look at it this way. In debate, kind of, we talk about who has that burden of proof, right? Who has presumption over the status quo and who has the burden of proof. And the burden of proof never shifts in a debate. It always lies with he who proposes. And so he who brings forth the proposal to change has the burden to prove the justifiability of their change. And in that case, frankly, that's O'Rourke, because he is not the incumbent. And so that burden of proof to show the justifiability of a change in the gubernatorial office would belong to O'Rourke in this debate. And how does he maintain that burden of proof? Well, I think that what he needs to do is more than don't vote for that guy. I always think of that. There's an old movie. I'll use a really bad example here. So I'm a movie buff. There's an old movie from the 80s with, you know, the king of comedy, Richard Pryor, that was taken off of an older book. And they kind of did a retelling of the old book, Brewster's Millions. And if you remember that movie with Richard Pryor, the whole thing was, how do you squander $1 million a day? And so he figured politics was a good way to do that. So how to get rid of $1 million a day. He had to be broke at the end of the movie. If you haven't seen it, it's great. And so he runs for office, and his campaign is "Don't vote for me, vote none of the above." And I feel like that is what we're seeing is don't vote for me, don't vote for me, or don't vote for that guy. We see that kind of thing happening. But what we're not seeing is that maintenance of the burden of proof is what's the justifiability of voting for me, not voting against the other guy. And so what do I think O'Rourke needs to do if he's going to persuade some of those voters in the middle and some of those voters that are not enamored with that base politics is not don't vote for that guy. What he needs to show is why do you vote for me? And so, yeah, they're going to take some shots at each other, but that I think is the missing element for frankly both of these candidates is why do you vote for me? Not, you know, what do I buy with my vote? A vote is a social exchange. And so if I think of it in terms of a really simple kind of example, if you walk into a grocery store and you have only $5, and your task with that $5 is to buy a loaf of bread, and you're trusting that loaf of bread to nourish you and your family with your last $5. And the advertisements that you see for bread brand A are don't buy B, it has unnatural ingredients. And you've got bread brand B that advertises don't buy brand A, it's bad for your health. Well, now I've got two reasons to not buy those products, but nobody's told me why I should buy their product. Nobody's told me what's in their product and why it is better. So I'm left to choose on, okay, they're both bad. Now I have to hold my nose and pull the lever for one of the bad products. And so that I feel like is the problem with both candidates, and what they've got to do to honestly win is get that middle voter. And the way to persuade them is not don't vote for them, they're bad. It's to show me why I should vote for you in addition to why they're bad.
And I did want to ask one other question, and it kind of goes to, I think, what you were saying at the beginning about perhaps the format of these debates. They're not really debates. But in a sense, though, aren't the candidates trying to, create or perhaps avoid viral moments?
Well, sure. I mean, in comm, we like to say, if you can make it trend, you can make it true, which is one of the most terrifying parts of social media, frankly, and what it does to society and its impacts, that the more clicks you can get, whether it be truth or not, if you can make it trend, you can make it true, because you start getting buy-in and the viral click tweets. And so that's for better or for worse. In politics, that can either go really well or it can be disastrous for your candidate. And so certainly they're playing that game of trying to not get the bad viral tweets for the wrong reasons. And we've all seen that happen with political candidates on both sides of the aisle, where they get those retweets for the wrong reasons, and sometimes for really ridiculous things that turn into these huge moments for them. But they're trying to also rile up the voters to share for the right reasons. You want the hears. If we were in a parliamentary debate, it would be the table knocks and the hears. Watch Prime Minister's questions. It gets riled. It's great. But you want that hear moment on social media where people are going to share. So certainly they're going to try to do that. But, again, I don't know that that is mutually exclusive with showing me reasons to share rather than reasons not to share the other guy. And so I just don't know that those things need to be mutually exclusive, even in this format. My hope is that political moderators and debate moderators put out questions that are more focused on what are you going to do versus why should I not vote for him. So that would be my hope, is that moderators can push for some solutions of what do you propose we do about some of the problems facing Texans that they genuinely care about, and gives reasons to share for the right reasons. And I don't know, I have to hold out hope as a debate coach. I have to hold out hope that there's some shareability and some viral potential in those, how I'm going to fix some of these issues like our power grid, and not just in the take a shot at the other candidate.
Amaret Hinderaker, thank you so much from TCU. We really appreciate your insight to this upcoming debate.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
We are about a month and a half away from the midterm elections. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian joins us. Welcome, Nicole. With the elections in early November, how is the battle for Congress, control of Congress, shaping up?
Well, it seems like it's getting tighter by the day in terms of control of Congress in both chambers. Our latest CBS News battleground tracker shows that House Republicans still are projected or estimated to win the majority, but their margins are shrinking in terms of the number of seats they may potentially pick up. Right now, CBS News is estimating they may pick up about 10 seats for a total of 223, but that is down from about 230 back in July. In terms of the Senate, that remains a toss-up, and we're really focusing on a number of states, really a handful of states that could decide control of the Senate. There are about 4 toss-ups right now, including Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada, all of which could affect that balance of power here in the Senate, which already is quite narrowly divided, 50-50 as we speak.
In the House, we've seen Republican Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy unveil Commitment to America. And what are the Democrats saying? So let's take a look at what each of the parties' messages are.
Yeah, so I was with Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy in Pennsylvania when he rolled out this Commitment to America agenda, which is really Republicans' platform for the midterms in terms of House Republicans. And there's a heavy emphasis on strengthening the economy, security in terms of border security, as well as public safety, education, creating a Parents' Bill of Rights is something that they want to do, and also having more oversight with respect to the government and overall accountability. Now, in terms of Democrats' counter, they don't necessarily necessarily have any kind of snazzy slogans, if you will, but really their playbook is trying to promote some of their legislative wins recently, most notably the Inflation Reduction Act. We've seen the president traveling around really talking extensively about that. Democrats still strongly believe that that will help lower prices when it comes to the cost of prescription drugs and energy prices. Of course, they're also looking at this issue of abortion rights as something that may galvanize voters this fall. And in terms of slogans, pretty much the only thing we are hearing some Democrats utter is this phrase MAGA Republicans, really trying to paint Republicans as extreme, which is why they say that they should keep control of Congress as opposed to voters supporting Republicans, which they believe will take the country in a different direction.
One story that's coming up on the horizon is a potential government shutdown. There are just a few days left to get a deal finished. So what are the chances of a shutdown happening, and how could that impact the midterms?
Well, so far, there's not a lot of alarm here on Capitol Hill. I think probably because we have been through this drill many times before. But, this is going to come down to the wire in terms of the government bill that is on the table right now, the spending bill that is. It really is just a short-term measure that would fund the government for the next couple of months through mid-December, include some funding for Ukraine, also for some natural disasters, water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi, for example, also to help with wildfires out in New Mexico from over the summer. But that being said, what's really controversial about this is that it's got permitting reform provision that was proposed by West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, and that is something that Democrats and even Republicans aren't all on board with. This would streamline the permitting process for a lot of energy projects, and while people think it's important, they don't necessarily think it should be attached to a must-pass government spending bill. So we'll see kind of where lawmakers come down on it. There's a test vote on it later today, but if it doesn't go the way that some would like, then we'll have to see lawmakers go back to the drawing board again with just a couple of days before this Friday deadline comes up.
Well, we'll be watching to see how close it gets down to the wire. Thank you so much, CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian. You can get more political reporting tonight on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell right here on CBS 11 at 5:30 p.m. That's Eye on Politics for this week. I'm Jack Fink. Thank you for joining us. You're watching CBS News, Dallas-Fort Worth.